and welcome to your full moon forecast for the lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 7th, 2025. I'm your astrologer, Cawnawyn Mor. Let's dive into the chart. So here we have the lunar eclipse in Pisces chart, which occurred this morning at 11:09 a.m. in Pacific time. I do all my charts in Pacific time, just so you're aware, and I also do all my charts with an Aries rising. So we're not looking at houses today, we're just examining aspects and all the different planetary energies combined with the zodiac. So if you're new to astrology, this is really a great place to start, and that is what these videos are for, is to teach a little bit about how I go about reading a natal chart. Here we have our Sun Moon opposition, Sun being at 15 degrees 22 minutes of Virgo, opposing our Moon at 15 degrees 22 minutes of Pisces. A Sun-Moon opposition is what creates a full moon because we are in the Earth in the middle of the chart. The reason why it's an eclipse is because we have this Sun-Moon opposition occurring so close to the nodal axis. These are the north and south nodes of the moon, our moon, and this is marking the path of the moon along the Earth's ecliptic. So this is why when we have eclipses, the Earth or moon will block out the light from the sun, either shining itself or shining on the moon. So in the case of a lunar eclipse, where the moon is very close to the ecliptic, the Earth is standing between the sun and the moon, therefore it is blocking the sun's light from hitting that full moon. So it is a full moon, and I think that's worth remembering, that a lunar eclipse, while it holds a lot of special power because it is an eclipse, and it is transformative because it's standing so close to this nodal axis, representative of all the past and karma and gifts that we bring in and baggage and sabotage and all our past, right? Meeting up with our future, which is what we are all evolving and growing towards, the things we have to overcome, the challenges, and the gifts and beautiful opportunities that lie in the future, so long as we are working toward evolving ourselves, not only individuals but collective. So when these eclipses happen and they're so close to the nodal axis, this is why this is so important. This is why it's so fated, because these nodes are being so heavily activated. But we're still working with full moon energy, so remembering that a sun moon opposition is typically going to introduce us to this energy in the form of opposing forces, such as a relationship. Oppositions will often show up as somebody else in a relationship, where you are exhibiting the sun's archetype and the moon's archetype is represented by someone else, or vice versa. You're standing in the moon's energy, somebody else comes in with the sun's energy, because we are trying to integrate this axis. So this axis is Virgo and Pisces. What is the Virgo-Pisces axis about? This is one we really have to start getting to know, because our nodes are in this axis for over a year. So we're all getting to know this on a really deep psychological level. And what is it? I think of this axis as the axis of service. So Virgo, in a very earth, because it's an earth sign, practical, tangible way, is able to refine down the focus, get rid of the excess data that we don't need, and serve a greater collective through its intellect, through its mastery, through its deep understanding of what it's actually going to take to create an operational system. Virgo is really concerned with having a system or routine in place, steps necessary, broken down in practical, strategic steps. And it's about the mundane, small things. We can think about miniatures with Virgo. We can think about minute detail. It's about those minor details. So the little tweaks and twists that make life just align a little bit smoother. Whereas Pisces, this service is really through an act of compassion, through that empathetic meeting. So it's saying, I don't see these boundaries that society puts in our way. I'm able to merge with you on an emotional level, on a spiritual level, and see you for where you are as another being. And we can become unified in this experience, and I can help I can be of service just by being present with you in that experience and meeting you where you're at. This is why Pisces are incredibly empathetic and compassionate. It's why their boundaries are loose, because they're moving across through all the different planes and realms of existence, and they're able to move through relationships with the same fluidity. Now, where Virgo likes to be very structured and secure and make sure all of the things are in order and have a sense of control, Pisces is not very comfortable with that. In fact, it would much rather just sort of lay back and let the emotions dictate what the direction should be. It's interested in the feeling, not necessarily the logic. And this isn't a hard, fast rule for every Pisces and every Virgo, but this is what we're examining with this axis here. And I really want to emphasize this, because not only do we have the moon and the sun But we also have the nodal axis bringing us all this lesson about how can we move away from the more damaging side of Virgo, the sabotaging side of Virgo, where the perfectionistic, getting it down to the exact right, precise place actually gets in our way, is a form of procrastination or self-sabotage. How can that overcriticality and need to have things just so, need to have structures in place in order to feel in control, how can we let go of some of that rigidity and move toward a place of more fluidity and, frankly, trust? Okay, so surrender and trust. I think I've been talking about this for really the last year, about the Pisces Virgo axis being the nodal axis right now. So right now we're all being confronted with, do we trust in the unknown? Who would you trust in the unknown? Do you trust yourself? Can you surrender your control, your need to have the systems in place, and recognize that actually you are not in control here, that there are larger themes, larger powers that are moving without you having any say in the matter? I think the way to really emphasize this is Saturn just moved this last week back into Pisces. So Saturn has been in Pisces on and off for the last 2 years. Saturn spends about 2.5 years in every sign. So it just retrograded back into Pisces, went retrograde back in July in Aries, has moved backwards through Aries into Pisces. And now it is saying, let's close up these chapters, because as it returns to Pisces, it's making one last little voyage in the ocean of Pisces, and it's saying, let's wrap up our chapters, let's close our doors, we're all done, we're going to neatly package this up and send it out. But when Saturn is in Pisces, those packages may not look so structured. It really might be like, you forgot to grieve about this thing, and now the emotions are going to start coming up. Or it can look like, because it's North Node energy, like in order for you to step into this dream, this place that you've been wanting to be, you're going to have to let go of some things in order to claim that authority for yourself. You're going to have to take some responsibility on. And maybe that responsibility doesn't even look tangible right now. Saturn in Pisces, this can speak to an authority that is kind of nebulous. Pisces is ruled by Jupiter, but it's also ruled by Neptune in modern astrology. And when we think about Jupiter and Neptune together, this is really the place of no boundaries, no structure, no tangible form. So when Saturn is in Pisces, if we think about what's an authority in our lives that has control that we can't do anything about, and one of the most Saturnian ones I can think of is time. Time is always ticking. It's that burden, it's that responsibility, the weight of that eventually all things will perish. Saturn can be incredibly isolated and cut itself off, starve itself off. In fact, wherever Saturn is in your natal chart, that can be a place where you have been starved of in your lifetime. So you're having to claim back the authority of that placement in your chart. But Saturn here, so close to this North Node, so close to this exact moment of the eclipse. The moon is going to continue through the day and pass over the North Node and Saturn. And really what I see here is whenever this eclipse is bringing us, there's now this awareness of, in order to step into this highest self energy, North Node, I'm going to have to take on the weight of this responsibility. And whatever that looks like is probably some sort of surrender of control. I'm going to have to realize that it's not all going to be perfect, that my way is not going to be the way that it always is, that maybe I need to surrender to a bit of compassion here and let things be a little messy in one area of my life so I can focus on another area of my life that needs its attention. It's really this dance between the letting go, where the South Node and the Sun are together in Virgo, in order to accept and embrace whatever new possibility awaits us. But it comes with a price. Saturn is usually a heavy responsibility of some kind. Now, if you're somebody who likes stepping into authority, into leadership, Saturn can be a great ally. It makes us incredibly disciplined. It emboldens us and strengthens us to be an authority figure, to take leadership of our own lives, to take control where we can. But Saturn, North Node, all together with this eclipse in Pisces, the eclipse, right, is going to hide certain things, like the Earth is hiding the sun's light, and thus, because our normal full moon in the sky is shrouded, because the Earth is blocking the light, other things are suddenly more visible. So things that are hidden are coming to the surface, and things that are normally very bright are getting brought down and not visible. Now, this can show up in terms of figures in our culture, in our society, rises and falls to power. This is usually quite extreme as well. So we see people really lose their reputation and suddenly new people come out from the grassroots. But what in your own life right now is maybe being squashed or hidden? Are you yourself being shut down right now? Or is the system that you were hoping for, the dream that you were trying to manifest, the new strategy for the fall that you were like so ready to do, is that not working out quite how you wanted? And now the path ahead is unclear. And what is coming to the surface right now that maybe you've been suppressing and trying to hide, and it's actually something that really needs your attention? Well, I would really encourage you to think about in your life right now, especially in your day-to-day practical tasks, in combination with the more esoteric, spiritual, woo-woo like realm, you know, your mental health, right? Things that we can't put in a box. Virgo is those tangible things, those small operations through our life, and Pisces invites us into that space that is imaginary, you know. And I'm not here to say your faith is an imaginary thing, but having faith, having trust is not a physical item that we can covet and hold. It's something that we hold within. So what things from within are coming to light right now? What are you recognizing that you need to lean into despite the discomfort? Remember, North Node will always bring a bit of discomfort, but you know it's good for you. You know it's the place that actually, if you massage that just a little tougher and add some pressure to it, it might help with the pain, with the wound, whatever that looks like. How can you show that compassion to yourself? Now, something I have to mention, we have Jupiter here, and here's what's kind of cool. Jupiter and the moon are what we call in mutual reception. So the moon is in Pisces, and Pisces, the traditional ruler, is Jupiter. Jupiter is in Cancer, and the ruler of Cancer is the moon. So they are in each other's signs, which means they share some of the same energy. So the moon gets to adopt a bit of its expression in Cancer here, being that nurturing, caring, protective energy, kind of maternal, but not limited to mothers, of course. This is just that sort of mama bear-esque energy. And then you have Jupiter, who's able to adopt some of the Pisces embodiment. So it's able to really expand its beliefs and imagine and think of a world that is ruled by love and compassion, and is able to meet people where they're at, and it's not constrained by boundaries, okay? So this is really nice that Jupiter is in a trine to all these planets with the moon in mutual reception. And if you see here, this is a sextile to the sun and to the south node and to Mercury, all hanging out in Virgo. Mercury, by the way, is happy and at home in Virgo. So we have lots of planets in their home signs, or signs that they like to be in. I would say, except for Mars. Mars, unfortunately, is where we have the thorn in our side. So Mars in Libra is currently squaring Jupiter. Now, Jupiter, if it was just talking to this nodal axis, to the moon, to the sun, and it is definitely presenting this energy, this is that expansion of our belief system that says, okay, in order to nurture myself, I'm willing to broaden my sights, broaden my beliefs a little bit, enfold other people, other things I care about into my sort of system, and recognize like there's room for them too. There's room to care for them, room to care for things as well, possessions, home, right? Whatever those things are that would make us feel safe and loved. And Jupiter is ready to expand in that way, prove to itself that it's capable of more, right? Can love even more, can hold even more in its arms, on its shoulders. Jupiter says, yep, we can do this. We've got our craft shell on, we can go. But now we have Mars, okay? So Mars is squaring this ruler of the moon. It's squaring what's talking to our nodal axis. You see here that Jupiter is at 19 degrees Cancer, and it's in a great aspect to this 18-degree south node and 18-degree north node. It's in a really harmonious, helpful aspect. In order to really make use of this, we are invited to expand our belief systems, to learn more, to open our own doors, open our own minds, open our own homes, you know, up to people. But Mars up in Libra here is activating this Jupiter. It's causing conflict. It's perhaps making this Jupiter actually feel a little more protective. Like, wait a minute, I need to shut my doors. I don't feel comfortable opening up to just anybody. I'm not ready to do that. I don't think I'm capable of doing that. That's not what's respected. That's not what's expected of me. That doesn't feel fair for whatever reason, or right, or just. Mars is kind of giving stumbling blocks to Jupiter. Right, there are always lots of versions of this energy. Mars can also be really emphasizing Jupiter. In fact, overemphasizing Jupiter. So what can happen when Jupiter expands its doors too much, lets everybody in, lets everybody start making the new rules and says, okay, like I'm just going to surrender to whatever is going on. And then it's just tossed about and there's no control anymore. And then what happens is it might start feeling bitter because its needs aren't being met, because it was like, I'm ready to open the door to everything and everyone. And I'm just going to go swimming in all of this subconscious mess because that's what I'm supposed to do, right? Like I'm really invested in this and this feels like it should look like self-care. Why don't I feel cared for myself? Why am I starting to feel bitter? Why am I starting to feel depleted and exhausted? So Mars might be acting like an instigator or an emphasizer of this Jupiter and saying, do more, make more, have more, really give yourself away. Mars in Libra is very concerned with keeping everything harmonious and will act to do so. So that can look like acting against your own best interest to keep everybody happy. It's not always the case with Mars and Libra. That's kind of more of a shadow side, but it really complicates this moon. And also I should say, because this energy is opposing Saturn having newly entered Pisces, that weight that we were talking about at the beginning of this video, that is being introduced with this. It might come very clearly as a sobering reality or a fact that you just can't get around. It might look like severe stumbling blocks to letting things be what they are, or a feeling of isolation and hopelessness, a feeling of burden. Okay, so remember that as we're feeling these things, to move through them with some grace for yourself, because this is a very complicated and layered eclipse. Plus, with it being an eclipse, being fated, these are the kind of situations and circumstances that make us act for the long term, even in ways we don't expect. There might be just one little tweak or one little change that we make that actually sets that ripple effect forward. And we look back years from now and go, wow, everything changed when I made that small decision. Small being so key here. I mean, one of the big things with Virgo, I think, is that focus in on the miniature, on the finite. And with Pisces, there's this realization around how small we truly are in compared to the giant universe. And Pisces can feel very alone and isolated in that. Pisces needs to remember that we are unified in that experience, and that if they are feeling lonely, then likely so many others are as well. And there can be a comfort in that, like, we're all going through this together, and it is here to bridge those boundaries, not just sit in the isolation. But with Saturn being there now, that feeling of being starved of can be really prominent. So when these feelings come up, try to just remember that, like, the planetary energy is pretty heavy hitting right now. It's very loud. The eclipse also, while we have the lunar eclipse today, this energy is lasting for weeks. So I acknowledge the eclipse energy really starting from the previous lunation, the new moon that we had in Virgo back in August. Some people take it a little later than that. Some people only view from this eclipse to the next eclipse, that 2-week period in between, as being eclipse season. However it resonates with you is great for me. However you want to work with that. I start seeing the themes, journaling, recognizing who's coming in, who's leaving, right? Thinking about open doors, closed doors is a big nodal axis thing. So this is like open doors, closed doors of opportunity, of jobs, but this can also look like loved ones' lives, people around us, experiences. Like, doors and chapters are closing, so new ones can form and be open to. So while you're going through these changes, if you're feeling that sense of heaviness, if you're feeling that sense of unknown, or you're trying to make sure everybody's happy, you want to open to new things and you're not sure where to start, this is all part of this process. So I so encourage you to take a cue from Pisces and really go within and try to first, understand the self, bring compassion and love to the self. Let go. The sun on that south node is asking us, what are the types of things we are trying so hard to control, that we can surrender and trust a little bit. And right now you're probably getting, if you aren't, I'm sure people around you are getting lessons right now in what does trust actually feel like? What does it mean? What does it mean to have to trust in something when that's all you have left? These are the major themes I am seeing coming out of this lunar eclipse in Pisces. I so hope this was helpful for you, and that maybe you were able to learn a bit about how I go about reading the chart, as well as get a forecast for honestly today, but very much the next couple of weeks with this eclipse season. So I wish you all the best. Don't forget to catch my zodiac forecast every season on Bonfire Babble podcast. And if you'd like to book a reading with me, I do a recorded reading where I send you back a recording within 72 hours, or you can try to get on my calendar if you find any availability there on my website, CawnawynMor.com. Thank you so much for watching this full moon forecast, and I will see you next month for the full moon in Aries. Blessed be.